Today, I want to talk about something I'm calling networking versus networking, why we fail to attract market audiences with our value. Jesus said something that completely made me reframe the concept of networking. And what he said comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 4, verse 19. He had this big, broad statement. And the broad statement is, I will make you fishers of men. So Jesus promises to train his disciples to be what I'm calling men fishers. It goes without saying he's using relatable language to them. Peter, James, and John are people who are used to going to Galilee and they understood what fishing means. So Jesus is using their language, he's using their semiotics, their symbolic way of expressing themselves as far as fishing is concerned. So he's using that to his disciples, but relating it to human beings. He's meeting them where they are in their world using their terminology. So I want to borrow from this language and reposition and frame the concept of networking for you so that you might have a different perspective of what networking and networking is. And I promise you, this is not a doctrine, this is just a creative license extraction from the teaching of Jesus to help us in our marketplace exploits. I want you to think about it in this manner. A fisherman works with nets. Therefore, we may allude that he works with nets, and because he works with nets, he networks. I'm trying to use that word. But there is the critical question every marketplace practitioner needs to ask. Is your net working? If Jesus is calling you out as a fisher of men, and he's using the metaphor of nets to frame your job description, the question I want to ask you is your net working as a fisher of men? If you're a fisherman, you need to be clear that your nets are working. The fisherman is the administrator of the efficiency of the net. Otherwise, he will not catch a thing or he will not catch men. Before any fisherman goes out, he needs to check if the net is working. In Luke chapter 5, verse 2, we see the disciples doing something very crucial. They were repairing their nets. The word repair means this. It means to restore, it means to equip, or it means to fit together. So I began rethinking about this thing called fishers of men and networking. And I want to ask a question. How many of us are trying to network with broken nets? How many of us are trying to network with broken nets? We are showing up to conferences, sending connection requests, pitching our services, but our thinking, which is our net, hasn't been repaired, restored, or properly fitted together. Your net is your thinking. And if your thinking is broken, your networking won't work. If your thinking is broken, your networking won't work. When this was happening, Jesus found his disciples at a very opportune time when fishing ought to have been done, but they had toiled all night and caught nothing. They were in their area of expertise because Peter, James, and John understood what water was, they understood the weather, they understood Galilee as an ecosystem of work. They knew what they were doing. They were like subject matter experts as far as fishing is concerned, but they didn't have results. These ones were not amateurs. Peter and his crew were professional fishermen. They had been at it for a long time as men of Galilee. They had skills, they had equipment, they had knowledge, experience, but they had nothing to show for it as far as that night was concerned. I think this sounds familiar. How many of us are experts in our fields but are struggling to get the market to respond? Is our net working or are we networking? Here is where the story also gets very interesting, especially when you look at Jesus He had come on that day and he demanded that he uses their boat to do it, to teach. So this is how I framed it. Jesus borrowed their boat, and this thing we are calling a boat was like a platform for Jesus. So Jesus borrowed their boat and used it as a platform. And do you know what Jesus did? Let me use 21st century language. Jesus streamed his message. Jesus was streaming. He used their platform after their nightly toil, streamed his content, then he gave them a prompt. That sounds familiar. You are recording a YouTube video like the way I'm recording a YouTube video. And then Jesus, after he has used their boat on their platform, used their boat or used their platform to stream his message. What did he do? He gave them a prompt. In Luke chapter 5, verse 4, the prompt is recorded like this: Launch unto the deep. This is Jesus giving them a prompt, launch unto the deep. This was like a return on investment. Jesus wasn't asking them to do what they had been doing all night in the shallow waters. Jesus was asking them or prompting them to go deeper. So Peter, who is the expert at fishing, responded by saying they had toiled all night, but at the word of Jesus, he was going to respond to the prompt. The point being, Jesus gave a prompt. Peter and his friends responded to the prompt. They cast down the net into the deep, and they had a very profitable bumper fishing expedition. So let me put out some things that you may just relate to as far as this story is concerned. Jesus will give you the ability, or Jesus will always give you the prompt to capture men. You are not out here alone. The Logos, which is the Word of God, the divine intelligence, is available to guide your moves in the marketplace. Number one. Number two, you need to stay and be keen in your market waters like Peter. Don't abandon your space because you had a bad night. Peter was still there, still working, his boat still in position when Jesus showed up. Number three, the strength of your net determines the density and the quality of the people you capture. A weak net, poorly thought through, will break when a big catch comes, or worse, it won't attract anything at all. Next point, always make sure you have your nets mended. Before you go to the networking event, before you launch that campaign, before you send that proposal, check your net. Is your thinking clear? Is it fitted together properly? Is it restored? Next point, cast your nets by the prompt of the Logos. Jesus is the Logos. He is not coming to muddy your waters. He is coming to administer a deep catch. When you get a divine prompt to move, to pivot, to launch into the deep, respond to it. Next point, like Peter, sometimes he may send you alone with a hook. Remember the time when Peter was sent with, and Jesus told him, don't go with the net, just go with a hook. And when the first fish comes up, take it and check inside and find a coin. So like Peter, sometimes Jesus might send you with a hook, which might be something like a proposal, a product, or an idea to capture the money fish. So not every catch requires a massive net. Sometimes it's targeted, or sometimes it's a targeted hook for a specific fish. But we have to ask ourselves, what really is the net? And here's where I'm proposing to you, the net is the thinking that goes into a product, into an idea, or into a service. The thinking is what comprises networking. So when I ask you, is your networking or are you networking, is all around thinking. When you come before people for a minute, an hour, or a day, what thinking hooks them to draw others or like interests to be captured by your net thinking. That is what I'm calling networking. When you say your net is working, it means the thinking that adds value to attract deep people to your product or to your service or to your idea. Most people think networking is showing up at events, collecting business cards, and making small talk. That's not networking. That's just showing up. Networking is the thinking that goes into why you are there. What are you offering? How are you presenting it? And who are you targeting? It's the depth of thought that makes your presence magnetic, you know, or your ideas alluring. So let me give you a simple case study by a guy I think most of you know called Daniel Priestley, who wrote a book called he has many books or subscribe. He has written a book called Key Person of Interest. And he says one time, as a young man, when he was wet behind the ears as far as business is concerned, he left Australia and went to Britain. And he did not know anybody in London, for that matter. And he needed to establish connections with key entrepreneurs of value, and so that he could get some business. So think about his position. He's in a new country, no network, no reputation, just ambition and an idea. So he says he took the risk and organized a dinner on his own account and invited targeted persons of interest. A good number of them showed up. They sat over dinner and had conversations. Then he later introduced himself and said what he was in town to do, which means he was pitching, or rather, he was demonstrating the thinking behind his networking. Uh, to cut the long story short, he bagged at least two or three people who gave him his first business in London, and the rest is history. His net worked. He cast his net into the deep, and it worked. Why? Because of his thinking. So the thinking that was at the back end of his net paid off. So, what is the bottom line? The bottom line of this short exhortation is networking is deep thinking. It's crafted deep thinking. It's not about how many people you know, it's about the quality of thinking you bring when you show up. It's about whether your net or your framework, your value proposition, your positioning is working. So, before you complain that your networking isn't producing results, ask yourself, have I repaired my nets? Am I in my market waters consistently like Peter and James and John, or am I jumping around? Is my thinking deep enough to attract the quality of the fish or the men I catch? Am I responding to the right prompts, or am I toiling in the shallow waters, doing what I've always done? Your net is your thinking. Make sure it is working. So I wanted to share with you that short, small teaching. I think Mondays I normally give you deep dives. Wednesdays are for quick dives. So deep dives and quick dives. So Wednesdays are for quick dives. If you want the full newsletter, plus the video and the notes thereof for that matter, and information, send an email to info.theschoolofdavid@gmail.com. So see you next Wednesday for the next quick dive. Thank you so much. God bless you.